Welcome to the Pen Leader Podcast, where strategic leaders get straight to the topics, strengthening our awareness and sharpening our minds. The Pen Leader Podcast is produced by Roar, a production division of Mays and Associates Ltd. Find out more at www.maysassociatesltd.com. Now here is your award-winning host, Dr. Shan DeGore.
And welcome to the Pen Leader Podcast. Today we're going to be talking about elevating engagement. And I am glad to have with me Miss Mo Cotton Kelly, who is the Chief People Officer and Senior Vice President for Alumni Engagement at the University of Connecticut. She has so much responsibility for driving operational and comprehensive campaign strategy, overseeing key administrative functions in alumni relations, human resources, board engagement, and foundation operations, and she's guiding a culture to ensure inclusivity for the UConn Foundation. She has more than 28 years of experience with higher education institutions in university advancement field, where she has developed exemplary leadership, created strategic plans, cultivated organizational change, and is known nationally as a leader in this industry. Prior to coming to UConn, she was an executive director for Bowling Green State University's Alumni Association, Go BG, and she has her bachelor's and her master's degree from BGSU. So without further ado, welcome, Mo.
I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for having me. I am looking so forward to this conversation.
Oh, thanks, Mo. And I'm going to start off. I just love the fact that you've got this personable approach to what you're doing. And so I'm going to talk to you about that leadership look, especially at the foundation level, as you're raising money for the university. And can you talk about what that looks like and what context, especially at a major university, what that means?
Sure. So here at the University of Connecticut, our foundation is a separate foundation. A lot of folks in other institutions have a very integrated shop. At Bowling Green, for instance, it was a university advancement shop. For here at the foundation, we have a president and CEO of the foundation. We are governed by a board of directors, but my CEO, Amy Yancey, sits on the executive cabinet with the president of the university. And so we have our own CFO, we have our own fundraising VPs, our own general counsel. And so from a leadership level, we have about 7 people that work with our CEO to lead the advancement, both fundraising, endowment, and engagement arm in support of the University of Connecticut.
Excellent. So, what's your role? Your role encompasses leadership over alumni relations, HR, board engagement, and operations. How do you balance all of that and still be an effective leader?
It's understanding my role specifically, understanding the goals of our organization, and thinking about that, making sure I have the right people on the team. I don't do this by myself. I've never looked at it as like, oh, Mo leads all of these things. I have an incredible team. I've had incredible teams. And so I think about, again, prioritization, communication, and delegation. I mean, you really have to empower your organization and your team to take on more, right? And to give them clear guidance. I really try, I'm a note taker, I'm a list maker. I try to follow up swiftly and effectively. But it's that constant juggle of reprioritization and making sure that I'm communicating effectively to my teams, and also bringing my authentic self. I think if I'm not who I am as a person, if I'm trying to hide who I am as a person, then that takes up more brain power, which doesn't allow me to think about the priorities and projects and who needs to be in the room to have the conversations. And so I'm really true to who I am so that then I can show that to my team and then communicate effectively to them things that need to happen.
hmm and what are some of those key principles you follow to build and maintain those relationships effectively?
Oh, well, a primary one for me, and it all starts, and I think you would agree, it's communication. You have
hmm
to be open and honest and
Yes.
respectful. And we also have to listen. I always go back to that time old saying, God gave us 2 ears and one mouth.
hmm
And so listening actively and empathetically, like I firmly believe communication is the core of all things. In addition to that, I also talk about trust and reliability. I need my team to know that they can rely on me, and not just my team, but my boss, colleagues across the university, because I need them to trust that I'm going to get the things done that they've told me to do, and that I've told them I will do, right? So
Mm-hmm.
that builds confidence and security in the relationships. And then also, respect, right? I mean, we have to understand that now more than ever, valuing other perspectives, understanding those boundaries and differences, that promotes a positive and inclusive environment. And sometimes there's pressure applied, and maybe how we're actually generating some of the conversation is not respectful nor inclusive. And so reminding myself in particular about that, and then showing some appreciation. You have to express gratitude and let people know that their contributions are seen and valued. And you also have to be able to have some conflict resolution and having directness. But again, it kind of all goes back to communication.
Hmm. I talk about the three C's: communications and care being a foundational understanding when you're pulling them all together to keep civil conversations moving forward so that the conflict doesn't happen. And if it does happen, you can civilly, again, agree that you can go through a discussion without it going to the next level, which goes into more emotional responses. And unfortunately, it's not resolving issues, it's just creating and instigating more issues. So
Absolutely.
I so agree with you. And I think that's sometimes I talk about the crisis of apathy. You just really need to slow down and just listen. That is an old saying about two ears and one mouth. And I do wish more people would take that to heart.
Yes. And you can take a breath. I talk about when I do presentations about leadership presence, I talk about silence is golden.
Yes.
Sometimes just being silent, collecting your thoughts, doubling down on your listening, th- you know, not trying to predict what's coming out of someone else's mouth and rebut immediately. The gift of silence is amazing. I try to practice that. I try to lead with that. And I think that's what's made me successful in the roles that I've had over the years.
Well, let's talk about those different roles and then what it means to actually, with those relationships, how do you cultivate meaningful connections, especially when we're talking about a large organization and a diverse alumni network? What does that look like?
Well, I will say, this work, anyone can do this work. However, I would say you have to really want to do this work,
Mm,
and you have to actually have a great sense of self. You have to have authenticity. I think if you talk to people in my life from when I was younger, whether that was high school, college, post college, I just enjoy people. I enjoy connection. I am a connector. That is a part of my natural DNA. I'm a military raised child. I went to 13 schools before I graduated from high school. So I've had to learn quickly to develop meaningful connections and relationships. And part of that is just being authentic. And also, I try to not overpromise and underdeliver
mm.
as well. I'm not going to tell you I'm going to do 5,000 things when I honestly know I can only do three of them. And so I'm also very clear in how I'm connecting with you, what our relationship will look like, and how we're going to evolve it. But then I also bring other people into those relationships. Part of working in the advancement field here or in anyone is while, yes, you may have a key person who is kind of if you're an alum or a donor, you might have a key contact who's kind of helping you with your philanthropic pursuits or your engagement pursuits. But we're merely one person in the lives of that, right? And so a university lives on forever. So my job is also to bring them into the House of Yukon so that it's not just Mo's one relationship, but I'm bringing other people along so that your relationship with your university is tied together and I'm a connector or through line for you on that. And so I just love people. I love meeting people. I love getting people excited about the University of Connecticut. I loved engaging people at Bowling Green. And I think when that's true to who you are and it's not hard, then it is so easy to cultivate those meaningful connections in a pure, authentic way. And I will also say I've leveraged social media, right? I've leveraged the digital space as well, LinkedIn. It just, you can kind of thread the needle between all of those. Sending a handwritten note, like there's just so
Yes.
many ways that I think it is important to connect on multiple levels, but then also bringing others to the table to kind of double down on those connections as well.
You talk about the human connections there, and even the human that, writing out a personal note, which I think is, I think it's a wonderful time to receive a note from someone, depending on if things are, if it's a celebration or a congratulations, or if there's something that's challenged to happen to someone and you're trying to give them words of support. And a
Sure.
handwritten note goes so far.
Really does. And I still send handwritten notes to, I thank donors, I thank board members, I thank staff members, I sign holiday cards. And, I know that's kind of a lost art in some areas, but it's really important to me. And if I have the time and opportunity, I do it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, let's talk about the age of these digital interactions. I know I have a couple shows that I've been focused on AI and talking about how artificial intelligence is playing a part. But when you're talking about relationship building, because you haven't, this is one conversation we haven't even mentioned digital as part of that. So, how do you utilize digital at some level to remain authentic and impactful? Because you talk about authenticity. How do you do that?
Well, it's a challenge for sure. And in particular, when you're a person in our level, right? How do you leverage both social media, right? I talked a little bit about LinkedIn and Instagram and Facebook and also email. I really, I guess I just continue to be me. And I'm also okay with sharing part of my life, right? I don't get into debates online, to be very clear. From a digital interaction, I try to promote who I am. I don't speak on behalf of the University of Connecticut in my personal posts. I leverage LinkedIn a little differently. I do a lot of in mail from that digital space, but it always comes across from myself as like who Mo is. Like when you email Mo, here's what you're getting back from Mo, from an email, from a digital footprint. The social media part I think is continuing to be challenging just because of the world that we're living in. But I don't put anything out there that I'm not proud to stand about if I'm talking to you face to face in person, whether it's online, whether it's on Zoom. I think you can feel my personality come through all of those media. And I'm who I am. I say who I am and I mean what I say. Consistency of that is incredible. Like, and then when something happens, I'll give you a quick example. When we launched our campaign, it was in April. We just launched a $1.5 billion campaign. It took many hands and our campaign director who is really responsible for that and our CEO. But I had been on social media talking about it. We've been, kind of teasing it out there. And then I got all these kind of, I can't wait to see you at this event, Mo. And then I actually saw them at the event. And then we hugged. And then we did this. And then I'm
Hmm.
gonna, hand them off to someone else. If you actually lean into it, right, authentically, and you're consistent, then you can leverage any type of media for the good. And that's kind of how I view digital interactions from every standpoint. Again, email, whether it's social media, which is kind of where the land that we're at right now, and thinking about the ways that we're leveraging it. I just think if you're consistent and authentic, it carries over in whatever media you choose to use. And I love it.
How would you rank the importance of strength, being able to weather challenges, and strength of character straight on the path of having strategic planning, because you do so much strategic planning, and then the sharpness of having the education and experience to lead? Out of those three
Hmm.
areas, which one would you rank at the top? And we talk about this in Penn leadership. Which one do you think is a
Ooh,
priority?
you know, given where it's funny, if you had asked me this 10 years ago, I'd probably have a different answer. But given even what I've undertaken here at the University of Connecticut, I think you really have to have strength of character, know thyself to be able to weather challenges. We are just now at this core moment in our history where everything is constant and nothing, everything is constantly changing. Nothing is actually staying the
Mm-hmm.
same.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you have to be able to really have a strength of character to be able to navigate it. I mean, both from internally here at the foundation to support our team to know that that work is important, but also to say, okay, we also don't want to be a lightning rod
Mm-hmm.
for our university, right? And also, 10 to 15 years ago, you would have presidents of universities that would stay 10, 15, 20 years. You would have CEOs that would stay 5, 10 years. And so even leadership is now changing on a dime. And to really understand that change is our constant, and you have to really dig deep down and understand who you are, kind of are your values aligned with the mission, but we're weathering challenges at an unprecedented level. And I do believe your education and experience contribute to you being able to do that. And I do also believe that you have to have strategy, strategic planning helps to get you a kind of organized, but you also have to create enough space to pivot, right? We could
Mm-hmm.
talk about COVID. We could talk about,
Mm-hmm.
blew every plan out of the water. And how do you kind of navigate? And I will also say multi generational staff. Like all of a sudden now we're at the biggest time, encapsulating so many generations that are looking at the work differently. And so I would say it's being able to navigate and weather those challenges because they're coming fast and furious.
Excellent. Well, my last question is not as serious because you have so much on your plate and you're doing such great work. What are you reading and what are you watching?
Oh my goodness. What am I reading and watching? So I'm an avid reader. I read about 50 plus books a year. I'm actually reading the book now. I'm actually having my entire team read Unreasonable Hospitality. And if you haven't read it and you're thinking about how we leverage customer service, because I think in the age of digital, in the age of constant change, that people also crave really great customer service, when you get it. And that's from anywhere. And that's us here in philanthropy. It's based on the hospitality industry, but it's an incredible tool. I'm also reading a memoir by Billy Porter, and it's fascinating as well. So I kind of watch things in the background, but I listen to a lot of books. Those are the two that I'm reading that have my attention at the moment.
Well, I do hope that the pin leader makes your list at some
It
point.
I'm subscribed and I will be listening post haste.
Well, that's great. I can't thank you enough for coming on and sharing all of those different, again, aspects from one role that has a responsibility for so much, and especially with how you take that engagement to the next level. So, thank you so much, Mo.
Thank you. My pleasure. And best of luck.
Thank you. And thank you to our listeners who are sharing the show and liking it. We appreciate you. And thank you to financial advisor Jennifer Pansition, who is our sponsor for the show. We appreciate all of your support, and Edward Jones. So thank you for that. And don't forget, if you have not picked up your Pin Leader Path book that actually talks about identifying, engaging, and developing human and AI leadership for your organizational culture, you can pick that up at any bookstore and online where books are sold. So we appreciate your support there. And of course, until next time.
The Pen Leader podcast is hosted by Dr. Shandagor and brought to you by Mays & Associates Ltd, creating customized solutions for growth in the areas of leadership development, strategic planning, and culture building. Find out more at www.maysassociatesltd.com. Don't forget to subscribe to the Pen Leader podcast and share with others.